Welcome to the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel, powered by InsideTexas.com. I'm Joe Cook, got Evan Veith. Steve Sarkeesian just got done talking during his regular Thursday game week Zoom. Saves us a trip to campus, but we still get all the information. We get to pass some of that information on to you. So make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And, of course, if you have not done so yet, first link in the description, go join Inside Texas for just $1. Best recruiting, best team, best everything related to the Texas Longhorns. We'll also throw in a full year of access to the Athletic. And we're recording this Thursday right at noon, just about. It means Thursday afternoon. Little Woodrow's on Burnet. Happy hour from 5 to 7. Trivia from 7 to 9. There's food options right around there. There's a Thundercloud. There's a One Taco. There's a, Hat Creek Burger Company. Everything you might need at that Little Woodrow's will be there. There will be college football on. It should be a lot of fun. Evan, got to talk a little bit about what Sark talked about, but first there is some big notes on the offensive line. Inside Texas via Eric Naline, he's been reporting that it hasn't been officially switched over yet. He's not made the replacement quite yet, but Connor Stroh is giving Neto Umeozulu all that he can in holding on to that left guard spot on the Texas O-line.
Yeah, I've talked about it every time we've written about Connor Stroh. He's that typical Kyle Flood, big human being recruit that came in and was really quiet for the first 2 years he was on campus. And then you hear Sark about, I think the last 2 weeks that he's talked about the team. Connor Stroh's been the first guy that's come up when he's talked about best developer, someone who's putting the most work from year to year. And so it seems like it's an earned thing, and it's because Flood likes what he's doing there out there on the field. But you can take it two ways. It's either you've got this big, giant player who's getting it technically, and he's starting to understand his assignments and playing well, or a player in his fourth year, Neto Umeozulu, who's not quite up to speed of what you want for a fourth-year player that was top 5 interior O-line recruit in that 2022 class. So it's definitely a point of note to look out for. Not something you expected 3 days before the game, but definitely very interested to see how that first depth chart looks on Saturday.
Yeah, we are too. Sark's pretty coy about the depth chart, doesn't like releasing them unless he has to. He's got 2 on Saturday, at least kind of, sort of, with some game notes. So we'll see who's there. And then we'll also see in pregame warmups. They put the starting 5 out there. So we'll see what that looks like during the lead up to the Ohio State game. While everybody's watching game day, we'll be watching all this stuff on pregame. Steve Sarkeesian talked about, as you would expect him to, about a number 1 team in the country coming off back-to-back semifinal appearances. They're confident, they're loose, they're ready. Makes a lot of sense. You know, a lot of football cliches getting to be that time of year. But at the same time, just to understand that this is a program that does seem to really naturally have that the games are fun, the practice is hard work. I always like hearing stuff like that, even if it is cliche, because it's not something we've known at Texas for, much of the past decade and even sometimes before that.
Yeah, I've been really, it really is that kind of coach speak season right now, Joe. But I've been going back and watching some of that Michigan game, and just the intensity of that group when they were walking out of the tunnel at the Big House is something that I keep coming back to. And a lot of those guys are still there. I remember seeing Spencer Shannon as one of the guys in the front row next to Gunnar Helm, and he's now in that role that Gunnar Helm had 2 years ago. And there's still a lot of continuity from the team that past year. It's just that some of these guys were on the 2 deep coming up into the starting role or coming up into the 2 deep from the backup spots. But there's reason for them to feel confident. You don't go 11-0 and you're past 11 road games and not feel confident. You don't get ranked number 1 and not feel confident. I think this team feels like they're the best team in the nation. It feels like they're going into Ohio State as the better team. Now, I'll tell you what, people in Columbus are thinking the same thing about their team. The players in Columbus are thinking the exact same thing. We're confident about Arch Manning down here. They're confident about Julian Sayin, which I know we'll get into in a second. So that's nothing to mean that confidence is everything for these players, but it's there. And Sark keeps talking about it. And that's something, like you said, Joe, you just like to hear as someone who's observing from this team.
Yeah, and it says a lot more so about the leaders and that they're able to kind of disseminate that to the rest of the team, that you have guys like Anthony Hill, someone he mentioned right off the bat, and you also have some other guys leading a certain group ranked number 1 in the country. But before we get to that,
this video is brought to you by Andre the Lawyer. If you're injured, trust the team that secured millions for their clients and helped thousands of Texans with their injury case. Car wrecks, slip and falls, 18-wheeler accidents, on-the-job injuries, and wrongful deaths. Don't let insurance tell you what your claim is worth. Hire Andre the Lawyer to fight for you. principal office is in Dallas, but they serve Texans throughout the state. So don't wait and call Andre the Lawyer today at 214-444-8808. That's 214-444-8808. The contact information is in the description.
So a few other notes from the press conference. Sark talked about Jack Endry's glowing things to say in conjunction with Max Clare. You know, it sounded like he and Ohio State were kind of vying for the same player, same top tight end target. Texas got Endry's. Ohio State got Max Clare. Talked a little bit about Mason Shipley, the kicker, how he's had a good last 2.5 weeks of camp. Feels good about health. Talked about Emmett Mosley, who he's described as limited all week, still being the only real concern that Sarkisian wants to talk about. But then he made an interesting note about, again, that class of 2025. And I was kind of doing some mental math, like, oh, you're bringing everybody. But with the way the roster works, with fewer walk-ons now, he can bring all these freshmen, Evan, and show them what it's like to travel with Texas.
Yeah, and there's still at least like 5 to 10 guys. So you're thinking to yourself, these are probably redshirt players. They're going to see the field action maybe in these first 3 of the first 4 games when you play that out-of-conference schedule outside of Ohio State. But I do like the mentality from Sark. Have them know what it's like to go travel that far north. And like we've talked about before, Texas travels more than any other team in the SEC. So they need to get used to that. And especially if these players are going to have to come in and play, because this roster is going to look very different in week 8 than it did this coming week, coming up to this game right now. So I think it's a cool note. You know, Texas can afford to bring those guys. And like you said, with the roster turn these days, they can all come and play and be on the sideline. And I expect some of them to have an impact on this team, especially looking at, with you mentioning Mosley, some wide receivers who are freshmen coming in and getting a chance. So they're going to have to not only be ready, be understanding of what it means to go and travel to a place like Columbus, but some of these guys have to be ready to suit up and actually get into the game, which I'm going to be looking forward to. Cautiously, of course, a true freshman against former national champion the first game, but it's something I'm looking out for in the wide receiver room.
One other thing that I think maybe overlooked is you want them to be in that locker room after the game. You either want these freshmen who, a lot of them, Steve Sarkisian talks about, you recruit from championship teams who win state titles, who do a lot of winning. You want them to either know what that feels like, ideally, obviously. You want them to know what that feels like after the game, celebrating in another team's locker room, in their home stadium, you know, getting on that plane, feeling good, going back home to Austin. We've heard our guy Drew Kelson and a lot of other Longhorn players, you know, they're checking their watches to see if they can land by midnight to really celebrate the win. But if it doesn't go Texas' way, you want those freshmen to feel that hurt. You know, you want the freshmen to understand what it's like to possibly, you know, go through that process of defeat and then getting right back up on Sunday and practicing again. So there's so much value for Sark to be able to bring all the freshmen. And that's something we literally didn't learn about till today. And I think when we're thinking a few years down the road about this number 1 class with players like Justice Terry, with players like Jonah Williams, with players like Grayson Littleton, all the different guys that Texas brought in this class, Kalik Lockett, Jamie French, maybe some Dalen McCutcheon players we may see in Columbus, like you had talked about. This is going to be a big moment for them. Last but not least, cannot get out of here without talking about Arch Manning a little bit, but we got to talk also about the guy who's going to be giving him the ball on a play-to-play basis. But with Arch, he started games before, whether it was ULM, whether it was Mississippi State. He's been in games against big opponents before. He's been in moments on the road against big opponents, but he's not started a road game. And Sark said he's confident that this, you know, process-driven player entering year 3 in his system is going to be able to do it on the road just like he's done it at home.
Yeah, the exact quote is, I think the biggest thing for him is staying true to his routine, and that's always been what it's been like with Arch Manning. He's been a routine-oriented guy since he stepped foot on campus, probably a lot before he stepped foot on campus, but there's obviously a trust there between Sark and Arch Manning. He's not thinking of this as a quarterback entering his first true road game. I got to panic a little bit. This is my guy. This is my quarterback who I've developed for 2 years before this. I know he's ready for the stage. He's played in real games before. This is not his first true start like it will be for Julian Sayin. So that process-oriented routine is what's going to help Arch become a good player out there at Ohio State. He's been doing this, whether it was his first year and playing against Big 12 teams or it was last year going to Michigan. He was doing the same routine he will be doing against Ohio State. So there's nothing new. There's nothing different for him. And that's going to be really important when, this is not going to be an easy place to play. The shoe is one of the toughest environments in the nation. And he makes one bad throw and the entire crowd's on his back. So he's got to be ready for that. And he's seen Quinn go through that before. But I think Sark, has supreme confidence in what Arch can do this week.
The brain meld Sarch.
Yes, Sarch.
I'm there for it. But getting him the ball every snap, probably going to be Cole Hudson. Technically not a returning starter in the preview magazine sense of the word, but when you think of a player, the only early enrollee in his 2022 O-line class, saw a lot of action during his 2022 season, kind of started splitting action with DJ Campbell from there on out. But a lot of snaps to his name, and someone who Texas has seen and Sark really trusts doing the same thing that Jake Majors did for the past 5 years.
Yeah, he's not a returning starter, but he returns 1,300 snaps worth of production at Texas. That goes all the way back to his freshman year, like you said, coming as an early enrollee. And yeah, Sark mentioned that he's the ultimate blue collar guy. That's kind of, you joke about what you want on the offensive line, and it's one of those stereotypes is we just want that blue collar worker out there who will do the dirty work and do everything. And Sark's talked about this a lot before when we talked about our boards, but having that kind of nastiness and that bully mentality that guards bring to your team, and then developing him into a savvy center who can captain an offensive line, can captain an offense, has a good relationship with Arch, is such an underrated effect to Hudson coming in. So there's a chance that he comes in and is actually more impactful in certain parts of the blocking game than Majors was. I don't think you can replicate what Jake Majors was as a leader to the team within a week or two. But yeah, Cole Hudson is a natural guard who's going to be a good center. I'd assume he's going to play well. He seems like the one on this line that you have the least amount of worries about, even though he's changing positions. So yeah, a true blue collar guy at center is what you're looking for. And I think that's going to be a position that you're not going to think too much about this season.
Gonna be excited to see the 5 that he brings with, or the 4, I guess he brings with him, and who's going to line up on either side of him. Should be a lot of fun to track. We'll be tracking that over on Inside Texas. So go to that first link in our description. Sign up for just $1. It gets you the best team info, the best recruiting intel, and come join the best community. Speaking of community, this afternoon, Evan, you'll be there. I'll be there. A lot of different Inside Texas personalities, including Eric, LC, Ian, RT, and I think even Keenan will be there with the whole family there on Little Woodrow's on Burnet. Happy hour from 5 to 7, trivia from 7 to 9. A lot of fun. Food options, not in the restaurant, but right next door. A little bit of everything. I think you can get stuff delivered there, and great TV watching for the first real night of college football. So should be a whole lot of fun. Evan, thank you. See you in Columbus, and we'll see you next time on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel powered by InsideTexas.com.